SpectreVision Radio.
But all over the country and all over the world, all of the Americas specifically, where enslaved Africans were taken, there are belief systems that were born out of that were to help people fight, that were to help people heal. That was how people made their medicine. That is how people did their work. So this is relevant to literally everyone who descended from people who were a part of some type of transatlantic experience. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Cabo Aquaba, bienvenidos, sac pase, wagwan. What's up, yo? Not be forgetting the Baltimore one. Welcome to a Little Juju podcast. This is the Africana Ethereal podcast diving deep into the medicinal, the magical, and the ancestral spiritual tools that can help get us free. And I'm your host, Juju Bae, author of the book of Juju, Osho Priestess, Oreye Oshun, and of course your favorite big cousin conjurer. Welcome back. Thank y'all for watching a Little Juju podcast on Spotify as well as YouTube, and for your listening pleasures wherever you get your podcast. I appreciate you so much. Happy December, y'all. I hope y'all are doing well. I'm doing fine. I'm blessed. I'm good, y'all. I promise I'm good. When you guys see this, I will be on a lovely trip, resting my nerves, resting myself, something I've needed to do. So as I speak from the future, I'm wonderful, I'm happy, and I hope y'all are too. Okay, so I have a really exciting episode for us today. But first, we are going to start with our topic, Ogun's Internet. This is where I talk about things that I see on the Orisha of Technology's internet. What are y'all saying on the interwebs? What y'all tweeting about? What y'all talking about? This is where I discuss. So today for Ogun's Internet, I came across this post on TikTok. It's so funny. All the content is this on TikTok. But I came across a TikTok of this woman who I think she studies religion. I'm not sure. But she talks about religion a lot. This really lovely, smart white lady that I had to follow. And she did this post that I will have in the show notes, of course, about society. And she's an atheist. I think even though she's studied religion, she's an atheist. And she talks about one of the things that sort of confirmed her atheism was because she, at one point, because she studied religions from all over the world, she could guess based on the type of culture and society it was, what kind of religious framework that culture would use. And to her, that sort of, it seems like that is what informed her to be like, yeah, y'all all create these gods that you need for the kind of society that you have.
One of the things that was most damaging to my testimony when I was in theology school was actually studying what kinds of societies create what kinds of gods. And it got to the point where you could give me a society and tell me how it functions, and I will tell you what kind of god they had, and I would be right. If your society was dependent on trade, you would have polytheistic tolerant gods. We're talking Hindu gods, Roman gods. They don't require a lot of people, and also by being tolerant for diverse beliefs, it allows for flowing trade. If the society is a hierarchy with a strict authoritarian leader at the top, then the gods will also be that too. That god will be omnipotent and controlling. Think Islam. If you have a small egalitarian hunter-gatherer society, then you have animism, and your god will not really be watching over your morality.
And she provided some really good examples. I thought that this was really interesting. So we have our binder here today. So if your society was dependent on trade, then there would be a need for polytheistic gods and tolerant gods. And they had to be tolerant of different beliefs in order to engage in trade. So if we're thinking of a trading society, we're interacting with these people, we're interacting with this nation, we're interacting with these cultures, these groups, we had to have gods that would support that would be open to trade, that would be open to new ideas, that would be open to new gods, etc., in order to keep the trade economy going. She said if there was a society that was really strict in hierarchy and hierarchical values, then there needed to be a god that was omnipotent, a god that was controlling, a god that was ensuring that everything was going in the way that it needed to. like it would in a hierarchy. If it was a hunter-gatherer society, she could be able to guess that there needed to be a god that was represented animism, or that there was animism is like that everything has a spirit. And so God often was like a big God that did not have to pay attention to the interactions of human beings. This God didn't necessarily become involved in the morality of others, because we just needed, if we hunted and gathered, we need the rain to be good. We need the crops to be good. So we needed spirits and entities and beings of this nature that we're interacting with consistently, because we need good harvest. So we needed gods that would bring about good harvest for us. I felt like this was so interesting. I really appreciated her analysis of this, and it does actually make a lot of sense to me that based on how societies are run, that is what their god or gods reflect. Uh, for me, obviously, I'm not an atheist, so I don't think for me that translates into, that means that this is all made up because we're making up things to reflect our society. But more for me is that God, and again, when I say God, we have to think expansive. Like, I'm not thinking big sandals. I'm thinking, all encompassing, all creating, powerful spirit that we are a part of, when I separate from this God, when I say that. But I think of God, because God is a reflection for me, it's not so much that I think people are making up things, but that God is so expansive that God makes sense in whatever context that you're in. So whether you are in a hunter-gatherer society or a hierarchical environment or whatever it is, your God should be reflective of the people. And it can be reflective of the people because God is not separate from the people or culture or land or our desire for power that we try to seek through God. And it really made me just think about the kind of society that we are living in now, especially me being in the US. I know I have listeners from all over the world, so I can't just say we're all there. But I know primarily my listeners are in the US. And so what kind of leadership that we have now, and what kind of God are we reaching out to? How does God reflect the times of what, especially the people of power, how are they using that God to then inflict suffering on others? And we see that often with lawmaking. We see that with policy. We see that with saying, Christians are there's a genocide against Christians, like these things that aren't true, right? It's because God is able to be reflected in those times. There needs, if there's according to this creator, if there is a hierarchical system, which we absolutely are, we know that we are not a democratic society as is proclaimed, because we are living actually under a hierarchical system. We need a hierarchical God. We need a strict God. We need you people bad, you people good, you people heaven, you people hell, you queer trans people here, you people, we see that so clearly. Even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that this creator said, I think that there's a little bit of nuance. I do think that's something to sit with. Like, if we need the God to reflect what kind of society we're in with them, and what kind of society are we in, and what kind of God is this? And is that going to be the God that we choose as well? So shout out to this creator. Of course, like I said, I will have her information in the show notes. If we think about hoodoo specifically, hoodoo, which is an African American spiritual system that was born under slavery, essentially. It was the amalgamation of ancient African belief system mixed with sort of new ideas that were created in the US and the southern United States, etc. And even though I'm talking about hoodoo, this is also relevant wherever slavery was. So when we think about the Caribbean and Obia, there are a lot of similarities with Obia. Like, I use a voodoo concept because my people are African American, but all over the country and all over the world, all of the Americas specifically, where enslaved Africans were taken, there are belief systems that were born out of that were to help people fight, that were to help people heal. That was how people made their medicine. That is how people did their work. So this is relevant to literally everyone who descended from people who were a part of some type of transatlantic experience. But specifically, if we're thinking about that, we're thinking about this idea that God is created based on the society and the culture. if we have hoodoo, if we had Obia, if we have these other belief systems that were created under extreme duress, what does that mean about the god of hoodoo? What does that mean about the god of Obia? Yes, that there was a lot of pain and suffering, but also we can see God as a liberator. What does it mean to venerate a spirit, a God that cares about the suffering of this people and will do whatever? Hell or high water is what Obia is. Hell or high water is hoodoo. What does it mean to have a God that is of hell or high water? And especially as we are in a moment, I would say, of high water, what do we need to be saying to God? What does that mean that we need to be talking to God about? How do our prayers need to shift if we want to see God as a liberator, if we want to see God as a protector, if we want to see God that says, yeah, you don't deserve suffering and you deserve to take care of yourself and protect yourself and your family by any means necessary, because that's what hoodoo is. So let's tap into that God. That is the God that we need, that can reflect our society. That's the kind of God that we need. That is the kind of energy that we need. That is the kind of multiple spirits, in fact, that we need. Those are the kind of ancestors that we need as well. So shout out to this creator. Information will be in the show notes. And let's all think really critically about what kind of God that we serve. And to have an Africana framework around this, what kind of God do we want to be? Okay, y'all, let's get into our next segment called Black Business. And no, I'm not about to give y'all a pitch on why you need to sign up for Forex. This is when I tell y'all what is happening in the world across the African diaspora. It's not just about what's happening here. It is about what's happening globally, because what happens there happens here. What happens here happens there. So today we are going to travel over to West Central Africa and go to Congo. Now, I think it's really important to talk about Congo. I did have an episode that was actually called What Happens There Happens Here, where I talked about the genocide in Palestine, Congo, and Sudan. But today I do want to focus on Congo and give a little bit more context. Yes, of course, to what's going on and then how we also play a part in the suffering that is happening. So if you want to know more historically about like the inner workings, like the Congo situation is very nuanced. It's very deep. It goes back. So if you want that context, please listen to my What Happens There Happens Here episode, but I will just give a brief sort of points here so that we can keep up with the conversation. So this conflict, as we understand it now, started in the mid to late 90s. Of course, were things before that, but we're going to start mid to late 90s. And this kind of began in the wake of the Rwandan genocide that was happening in 1994, during which ethnic Hutu extremists killed an estimated 1 million minority Tutsis. So these are different ethnic groups, and it was a lot of bloodshed. And they also killed moderate Hutus in the Rwanda region. Rwanda is right next to Democratic Republic of Congo. They are neighbors, essentially. And so during and following the genocide, nearly 2 million Hutu refugees went over, because again, this is a neighboring land, neighboring area. So these refugees went over into the Congolese border and mostly settled in refugee camps in the North Kivu and South Kivu provinces. So a small subset of the Rwandans who entered Democratic Republic of Congo, I'll say DRC for now, were Hutu extremists, and they began organizing militias within the Congo. So Congo had its own thing going on. This is kind of like a bleeding of what was happening in the neighboring countries, because there was so much violence and bloodshed. Extremists, people who were refugees were going into Congo. So it also brought the conflicts into Congo. So then pressure is intensified, and Tutsi militias organized against these Hutu groups, and foreign powers got involved and started taking sides. So we also must think about Congo as a really abundant land resource. The natural resources, especially the precious minerals, is how we, as the Western world and all over the world, gets its goods, gets its diamonds, gets its minerals, gets its cobalt for our phones, for our cameras, for our laptops. This is why people are often bringing up the mining that's happening in Congo. But if we think about a country that there's extremists, there's still Hutus and Tutsis, there's killing, there's warfare. We also have the Congo War. We have extreme terrorist groups being born because of the extreme poverty, because of ethnic rivals. That's already intense and bad enough. But then you have often European, there's also Chinese foreign powers who see people arguing amongst themselves, killing each other. Then they start supplying weaponry to these extremist groups. There's groups created like the M23 is when you do research on the genocide in Congo, you'll see a lot about M23. These are Tutsi, sort of Congolese people who are part of the extremist groups who are doing a lot of the bloodshed that we hear, a lot of the assaults that are happening against women and children, and violence is because of these extremist groups. M23 is involved. But then M23 is also backed by foreign power. So a lot of them are given weaponry, they're given resources, they're given training, and all of this is happening within Congo while they are making money off of getting cobalt, while they are making money off of the land. And it impoverishes a land. People are constantly fleeing. There have been over 6 million deaths. There have been over millions of displaced people. The amount of violence that happens, like, it is gruesome. It is gruesome. It is horrific. And so they have a people who are completely impoverished, who are suffering, who are running. And then we have foreign powers just getting their hands on the goods while everything's happening. And then because there's so much poverty, because there's so much lack, they can pay people virtually nothing to spend hours, if not days, into landmines in order to get this mineral that is cobalt, so that they can keep up with the demand all over the world to have the new iPhones, the new products, the new things, the new tech. So that makes us a part of what's happening here. That's why I say what happens there happens here. This matters for a lot of reasons. The first that I want to talk about is this intracommunal violence. This is what happens when you impoverish a place, you back domestic terrorism, you back militias, you let people fight amongst themselves and kill themselves while you steal their purse. And I've said this in a previous episode. We have to get really careful about what even our own leadership, even the people who are supposed to be leading us into something better, how they create intracommunal wars, how they create poverty, people not having food stamps or not having access, government shutdowns because they want to raise healthcare prices. This is how you get people screwed up. This is how you create issues and conflicts. And when leadership starts to create issues and conflicts, that's because there is some kind of thing that they want us to be distracted from. They want us to be fighting each other. They want us to be robbing each other. They want us to be killing each other so that someone can steal our purse. Okay? That's why I always say what happens there happens here. We have to have international, cross-border analysis of what we are experiencing here, because people all over the country have been talking about this, have been showing this, have been saying, like, we need to pay attention. It is not enough for us to be ignorant anymore. We can't be ignorant anymore. If you wanted to be ignorant, you should be ignorant 5 years ago. Like we get in 10 years ago, like now we really can't be. Because intracommunal confusion are breeding grounds for theft and even more suffering, as we see in Congo. This is also important because even though we as people are not actively funding the genocide, our overconsumption of tech is actually funding the genocide. Now, I'm recording this on 2 iPhones in the house. So I'm not divorcing myself from this too. I'm saying that we actually have to admit that we are a part of it. I try my best to not just get the new phone all the time. I try to buy exclusively refurbished iPhones and Mac products now when I can. All of mine currently are refurbished, and people may think that that's not like a big deal, but I do think that we have to be really mindful of how we are often told that we always need the new, we need the best, we need the fastest, we need the most powerful, we need this car, we need these things. We actually don't. We don't always need the best. This phone I got is fine. It ain't the newest phone, but it's fine. It's working. Y'all see me, I see you. It's working. Somebody else had it before I got it. I just don't want to be a part of this machine. And anything, even though it seems small, anything that I can do to reject what I'm told about what it is that I need and how fast it needs to be and how I need all the bells and whistles, we actually have enough. We don't need no more. If you need a new phone because your phone is back, consider getting a refurbished one. Consider using a friend's phone who wants to sell theirs. Like, just consider how you might not even just reduce your carbon footprint, but release the suffering. And the next part of this, even though we don't have power to necessarily stop it, and some of this government stuff that's happening, especially in Congo, ain't even just the West. This is the Asian country. It's a whole lot going on, right? So this is very, very nuanced. But I think that the biggest power that we all have is to not be ignorant. We at least have to know. You have to know. Even if we can't do anything, which I would trouble a little bit, we can't do all of everything. But we cannot be ignorant, because that is actually what they want us to be. They want us to feel so disconnected from people in Congo, or disconnected from people in Sudan, or disconnected from Palestine, or disconnected from IT, or disconnected from Jamaica, that we don't have to think about what's going on there because, oh, I'm good. I'm in the United States. No, I'm fine. Lady, what happens there happens here. Every time. And there are signs. So we cannot allow ourselves to be ignorant. So I definitely am always praying. I know that I have some ancestral ties to Congo. So I am always praying and uplifting the Congo people. And I pray that Congo will be free. I pray that in my lifetime, Congo will be free. And that us, as in some ways, people who fund this, whether consensually or not, that we start to realize our role and we start to make some different choices. Okay? What happens there happens here. I'm going to put some resources on how to support Congo, where to get good information. Honestly, there's this page on Instagram called teamcongo.rdc on IG. I've gotten so much information from there. They are always posting people. They're posting stories. Now, I will say they get right to it. They talk about the atrocities. There are women telling their stories. It is some of the most horrifying things I've ever heard. But I don't want to just not take it in because it's too hard to hear. Imagine you had to live like that. So it's not that I'm putting myself through trauma, but it's how I remained informed and remember that there's children behind you seeing me through this. There's children slaves behind this. Someone could have died for this. So I don't even want this all to be in vain. I need to see, I need to remember, I need to recall and be reminded that there are human beings on the other side. So I will have some resources, but particularly following on Instagram, teamcongo.drc, and all of that will be in the show notes. All right, y'all, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Hey, y'all. So, a Little Juju podcast is a labor of love, but it is labor nonetheless. Time, energy, resources, team, these things cost, oh my dollar. So if you want to support, I encourage you all to, one, watch me on YouTube. That is a free way that y'all can support so we can be on the road to monetization. Also, when you listen on Spotify or watch on Spotify, that also helps with our ad revenue share, so you can support that way. But of course, if you want to open up your purse, I can put the basket around it so you can drop your dollars in. So for $7 a month, that is a coffee in New York with oat milk. That's a cute latte. in New York, you can help support a Little Juju podcast with the time, with the equipment, with everything that we need in order to put on a good show for y'all. So if you enjoy the show, you're like, wow, Juju, you're so amazing. You changed my life, which y'all share with me all the time. And I so appreciate you sharing that with me. And if you want to share with your coins, you can do so on the patreon.com/Juju Bae. And of course, I have other tiers there if you want to give a little bit more. If you want extra perks like reading of the month, if you want to take my monthly card divination classes, if you want access to the private Discord, all of that is in my Patreon community. We have fun over there. We learn. We be talking. We have fun over there. Discount this stuff. That's where I be at. So join me on patreon.com/Juju Bae and let's have some fun. Let's get deep into the juju. So thank all of my new patrons. Thank all of my old patrons. As you are engaging in the energy of exchange with me, I give you all the good juju. You give me a couple coins. I also want to pray that you have every resource, every coin, every friend, community member, whatever you need to bring about your project, to bring about your blessing, whatever it is that you have to give to the world. I pray that you have the resources to do so. And thank you for sharing yours with me. All right, y'all, let's get back to the show. Okay, y'all, welcome back. So our next segment today is cod liver oil. This is the OG Heal Yourself segment, the old listeners know, where we talk about the things to get you right. Whether it's cod liver oil or Pilates, there is healing all around us, backwards and forwards in time. So this is where I talk about what we need to know to heal. Okay, so today's cod liver oil, I want to talk about vitamin D. Now, this came up recently. I was talking to my therapist. I haven't been depressed lately, but I've been having the blues. It could be seasonal blues. It's a lot of things going on. I'm tired. It could be all of that. But she was like, are you vitamin D deficient? I was like, girl, I don't know. She was like, well, you should see. I guess you can get tested to see what you're deficient in. Yeah, but she said that a lot of Black people are vitamin D deficient. And she said that a lot of us have been incorrectly diagnosed with depression. We actually just don't have the kind of vitamins that we need. It can also contribute to you being extra tired, feeling lethargic, not wanting to do anything. And that is some of the signs of depression. But she said that we sometimes are overdiagnosed with depression. We really just don't have our nutrients. We don't have the things we need. So I was like, so let me talk about vitamin D for today's Cowrie Reward. So according to Marissa Moore, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist in Atlanta, she says that most of us grew up learning about the importance of vitamin D for bone health, but it may also play an important role in our immune system support as well as a number of chronic health conditions. So besides helping your body absorb calcium to grow and maintain bone strength, vitamin D is involved in cell growth and blood sugar regulation. And the functioning of your muscles, nerves, and immune system all get an assist from that nutrient. And this is according to the National Institute of Health Office of Dietary Supplements. So vitamin D is very, very important. And the way that we can start to increase vitamin D, of course, we can take our vitamins. You can get vitamin D in a supplement form, but eggs have vitamin D, fortified milk, getting your sunlight, fatty fishes like salmon, herring, and halibut, and you can get plant-based form known as D2. There's also vitamin D in certain mushrooms that are treated with ultraviolet light. I also have seen that they sell lights, I think, that you can sit under, and this helps people who get seasonal depression who need their sunlight. There's actually this kind of solar light. I don't even know what it's called, but you can sit by that to help get your vitamin D, or at least help to give you that full sun vibe to help release the endorphins and the thing. I don't know, make sure that, but that does exist. So maybe I'll find that what I'm talking about and I'll link it in the show notes so that y'all can see what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to uplift vitamin D just as an idea. I'm sure, I don't know if I'm vitamin D deficient, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't necessarily think about vitamin D. I'm actually really bad with vitamins. Like, I've tried to get better. I have recently started taking Black girl vitamins, and I actually do think I feel a little bit different. This is not a paid sponsorship. This is not an ad, but My mom put me on to Black Girl vitamins, and since I've been taking them, I had been feeling a lot more upbeat. So I was probably and still am probably deficient in many things. But I wanted to specifically talk about vitamin D because my therapist brought it up to me, and it's seeming that a lot more Black people are vitamin D deficient than other groups. So I'm like, well, let me talk to the Blacks on the show. I got a show of Blacks. So y'all take your vitamin D, get your vitamin D, drink your fortified milk if you drink your milk, if you eat your salmon, and get your D. And that's today's cod liver oil. If you all have suggestions for cod liver oil, things that you like to do, things that bring you healing, that make you feel happy and healthy, let me know in the comments. What do you use to remain healthy in these times, to feel good in your body? Let me know. So maybe I'll talk about them on the show. All right, my dears, our last segment today is Dear Juju. This is when you all write into me to answer your questions about anything: love, sex, relationships, spirituality, whatever is going on in your life. Write it to me, no judgment, and I might just read your letter on a Little Juju podcast. Reach out to me at dearjuju@yahoo.com to potentially have your questions answered. So today's Dear Juju letter reads, Hi Juju, I hope you're doing really well. I'm so glad to hear that the show is back, and I wanted to contribute a letter. I know you have a background in psychology, so I thought this might pique your interest. I'm a therapist, and I'm also a Black spiritualist. I practice hoodoo, and I'm hoping to get my hand to B5 in the next couple of years. I'm curious what your thoughts are on two things. 1. How do you recommend that people use Black spirituality to help integrate what they've learned in therapy? For me, herbalism has been increasingly supportive for integration, but I know that's not everyone's bag. And 2, what are your thoughts on integrating Black spirituality into the therapeutic space? My own therapist also practices these traditions, and we sprinkle in themes of ritual, divination, etc. as appropriate. I find it so healing, and I imagine other folks might too. Would love to hear what you think about these questions, or just the intersections of Black spirituality and therapy in general. Thanks for reading and for all that you do. Thank you so much for that question. Yes, I do have a background in psychology. That was my major in college, and that is also what I was in a doctoral program for before I dropped my ass out of my doctoral program. So I love psychology and I love healing. And I think that there is a way for psychologists to incorporate more spiritual aspects, of course. I mean, on a surface level, every client is coming with their own beliefs, coming with their own spiritual systems, coming with their own ideas about a higher power or whatever. So a good therapist is going to want to know those things and try to incorporate your belief systems into your work. So I can use myself as an example. I do have a therapist, and she knows that I am a practicing spiritual practitioner. She knows that I'm a priestess. So even when I talk about things that I'm going through, we're talking about my life or even my past, she'll say, did you ever ask your ancestors what they think? Have you talked to Oshun about that? Did you consider what they said? Did you talk to your godparents? Did you ever get a divination on this thing? Have you written that down? Did your dreams tell you anything? So she does try to incorporate what I told her I believe in into our therapeutic relationship, because I am someone who talks to the dead. I am someone who has ancestors, who has Orisha, who works with them and talks with them. So having their opinions be a part of this and her valuing that is very important. So I would say, because you're a therapist, of course, knowing the belief systems of your clients, but then reminding them, hey, did you get a reading on it? You should maybe get a divination. Now, I do think that there are moments where it's hard to include them. I think that Black people specifically have had really difficult relationships with the medical industrial complex, especially as we think about the kinds of diagnoses that Black people tend to get, who are labeled as crazy because they see things that aren't there, because they hear things that aren't there. And in some cases, sure, it could be a mental disorder. And we also know in some cases, some mental disorders are actually just spiritual disorders that have gone haywire, and we don't have the same technologies in order to help that person address their spiritual concerns or address some of these people are really deep mediums, and we haven't built a society now in the West that we can train up mediums to actually has control over the voices of the spirit. So it's very layered and nuanced. So I think before we seek to pathologize, we really have to understand what might be going on. And I wonder for you as a therapist, as a hoodoo, I wonder if your ancestors are actually communicating anything to you about your clients, or are your guides, I don't know the kind of relationship that you have. I don't know if you're a medium, but I would wonder like what kind of insights that maybe you could get that are more intuitive. And I know that that's tricky. I know that that's not a part of protocol. This is how we are incorporating other ideas, other aspects, other frameworks into really a westernized understanding, which is therapy and talk therapy in particular. I think that you're on a wonderful path. You talked about wanting to incorporate divination and ritual. And I would say I've had a lot of readings with clients lately who either need therapy or are in therapy, but it wasn't enough. Ancestors have been coming through so strongly saying that the therapy has so many of my clients need is actually more of a movement-based therapy or somatic healing. It seems to be so much bigger than talk therapy. So I think that we do have a particular kind of focus on talking through our issues. We should talk through our issues. We can be conflict avoidant people and not address what's happening. So we do need to talk, but sometimes we actually, it needs to come out in movement. Sometimes we're just holding things in and we need to get it out. Maybe you need to go to a rage room and break a TV. Sometimes that is the therapy in itself. Sometimes you may need to slam your pillow. You may need to scream into that. You may need to dance. You may need to run. You may need to take a boxing class. Sometimes that's the word. Or you have a somatic-based therapist who incorporates the body. So we're thinking about ritual. We're thinking about Africana spiritual systems. There's not just talking. Like there's practice after the talk. There's something that we have to move out of ourselves or going to nature. So maybe encourage your clients, go to the river. Encourage your clients, take a stretch. Maybe before therapy, y'all do breathing. And then you talk, and then you breathe at the end to kind of close the setting. I think that those are some ways that we can incorporate ancient wisdom with the wisdom that we have to use within the therapeutic setting. So I hope that answered your question. And shout out to you for doing the work, baby, because we need more therapists. Because the therapists, a lot of them are my clients, and they're quitting. The therapists are quit. I've had 2 therapists quit on me. Not on me, but they just were like, yeah, I'm going to be a makeup artist. I'm not doing this no more. So shout out to you for being in the work, and many blessings to you. And I pray that you continue to bring the healing to your clients and that you also have spaces for healing for yourself within your work. So thank you so much for that question. If you would like yours answered, reach out to me, dearjuju@yahoo.com. Thank y'all so much for tuning in for another episode of A Little Juju Podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you know where to find me, jujubae.com. That's where you can book a reading with me. That's where you can reach out to fly me out to your school, your university, your organization. I also do parties. I love readings at parties. If I do parties, hit me up on jujubae.com. Of course, on the socials, I'm at ITSJJBAE. It's Juju Bae on virtually everything. And on Instagram, follow me at A Little Juju Podcast, spelled out just how it sounds. I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. Let me know how you feel in the comments. And I'm so, so, so grateful that we get to share this space with each other. I don't even think I have the words to, even though this is a lot of work and time and energy, my heart is so full. Like every day I wake up, I'm just like, thank you. Like I get to do this. I have met some of the most amazing people that I would ever meet in my life because of this podcast and because of you. So when I say thank you, times it by 10,000, because thank you is not enough. I appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for listening to me yap every week. And I will see you next episode. So be well. And remember, all you need is a little juju. Later, y'all. Bye. I felt the magic was inside. I knew the whole time. I felt the magic was inside. I knew the whole time. I felt the magic was inside. I knew the whole time. I felt the magic was inside. I knew the whole time. That's the hoodoo. That's the voodoo. That's the hoodoo. That's the voodoo. That's the hoodoo. That's the voodoo. That's the voodoo. That's the voodoo. I felt the magic was inside. I knew the whole time.